By the way, we are simulcasting at prisonplanet.tv the second, third, and fourth hour. Ron Paul coming up in the next hour. Going back to Larry Pratt of Gun Owners of America. If you just joined us, the Supreme Court a year and a half ago ruled that the Second Amendment is an individual right, as if we needed them to tell us this, but they had language in there about, but there can be reasonable restraints on it. And now they're saying, well, people have this right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and claiming this federal power over the states, whereas where I look at it, it should be the states' decision through their state constitutions. But when that does violate the Bill of Rights, then the federal government and the Supreme Court does kick in. And Larry Pratt's an expert on this, so navigate this for us, Larry Pratt, and explain why are the gun-grabbing groups saying that they're somewhat happy about some of the arguments earlier in the week by the Supreme Court pointing towards the fact that they're going to say, yes, you have a right to a Second Amendment, and that means turning your guns in, basically.
Well, there's nothing in this suit coming out of Chicago that is going to jeopardize the licensing schemes of any of these local jurisdictions. And so, yeah, the gun ban will be gone, but then the next challenge is going to be, oh, so you want a gun? Whatever made you think that would be easy? And, there was a reporter after the D.C. Gun ban fell, went through the process, took him 6 or 7 months, $750 in fees and lessons that he had to take and all this kind of nonsense, and finally got his gun. But it was something that, as a matter of his job, he was able to do. But most of us who have a 9-to-5, and the bureaucrats probably work 9:30 to 4:30, rots a ruck getting over there and getting the papers. And, you have to take vacation time on top of everything else to try to go through this gauntlet. And that's the way they like it. And they make the fees high enough that it becomes prohibitive, as they do in New York. It make it so complicated you may need an attorney to navigate through the system.
So the language is, again, okay, you do have a right, but we have a right to make it almost impossible to get one.
So far, that's about all that we've accomplished. And, it's progress. No more gun bans in D.C., no more probably in Chicago. A lot's going to hang on what Mr. Heller is doing. If he has a favorable outcome, then he's going to be junking the licensing scheme in the district. He's got another attorney, because the one that went up on his case the first time actually agreed with Justice Stevens that there is such a thing as reasonable infringement, which would include licensing. And well, that was the ball game. And even Scalia said, we're not going to rule on the District of Columbia's licensing law because that was taken off the table by counsel. So that was a very expensive decision that attorney made. And actually, from what he said later, that's what he believes. He doesn't have a problem philosophically with licensing.
And going back from memory, correct me if I'm wrong, the NRA came in and stuck their snout in the middle of the suit and was allowed to file briefs, and they were arguing in their filing that, yeah, you're allowed to make us get licenses and make it hard to get. We're just saying that if you can jump through 100 flaming hoops and climb Mount Everest, and if pigs can fly, then maybe sometime on a blue moon you can look at a gun. I mean, they basically agreed that, yes, you can restrict, but there is sometimes a right.
The NRA for a long time has taken a position that these kinds of, to use Stevens's term, reasonable infringements are acceptable. They were the ones who wrote the instant background check law. That was not something that the Bradys came up with.
The NRA spearheaded the 1968 Gun Control Act.
It was when the Brady law was before Congress, it was originally a waiting period. And had it remained just that, Sheriff Mack's lawsuit would have overturned that, and we would have had Zippo in this area.
But instead they moved to an instant registration, again.
Exactly. And that supplanted the waiting period after, I don't remember, 4 or 5 years. and that's what we're stuck with now. So they think inside a very small box, and they're afraid to push back against the system because, well, they don't want to make the system mad at them. And that's an attitude that's a prescription for failure every time. It's almost identical to the way most congressmen think, just want to sit there and kind of be nice, and can't we all get along, and it's kind of fun spending all this money anyway. So that's the business as usual attitude that we're up against, and it's killing us.
Now, Larry Pratt, Executive Director, Gun Owners of America, gunowners.org. We've got it up on screen for PrisonPlanet.tv viewers, links to it up on Infowars.com for radio listeners who want to go visit the sites and find out more and sign up for your great free alerts. Let's get into some other areas. I look at national statistics. Roughly 50-50, 25 years ago, in polls, half the public was ignorant and said, oh, yes, let's restrict guns. Now I see national polls of over 70% and growing every year say get rid of all the gun laws. It only empowers criminals and a corrupt government. We're seeing record gun sales. We're seeing a lot of so-called liberals buying guns. And we're also seeing airsoft, which shoots a plastic safe BB, selling like hotcakes everywhere. I mean, they've got double aisles at Walmart and double aisles at Academy here in Austin where I live. Every time I'm there, people are just all over the airsoft aisle, snatching and grabbing. I've bought a bunch of these. It's great marksmanship for your children. It's air-powered, very safe. It's a gateway for people into firearms who would be scared to even pick up a BB gun or then a real firearm. Studies show it's causing people to relearn to not be so scared of guns. And so now all over Europe, all over England, Australia, Canada, they're banning them. And you know about the case in Cornelius, Oregon. We had the fellow on 2 days ago.
Right.
They seized $30,000. Now they've seized $20,000 more. Totally legal, replica. They look real. And the ATF agent says on TV, it looks scary. I'm not going to allow you to have this. And he even got the ATF importation office to talk to them and tell them you don't have authority. And the Oregon office said, we don't care. Obama's giving us backing.
That's the key. I knew this was coming from the top. As long as President Hussein is in office, we are going to see this kind of lawlessness. If a bureaucrat wants to do this kind of thing, he knows he will not be held accountable by the guy at the top. And so we're going to see more of this, I'm afraid.
Well, they're claiming that they have a ruling power. Same way they can say a semi-auto is really full auto. Now, toy guns, Larry? I mean, aren't they wide open to serious lawsuits? But also, isn't it criminal? No paperwork either. They've grabbed 2 shipments, $50,000 worth, and just say, we're not talking to you. We're not giving you the paperwork. It's over. I mean, this is lawlessness.
It's about as outrageous a behavior as we've seen perhaps since Waco. These guys are so clearly thinking that they're above the law. They don't have to answer the phone. They've told the company that they don't have any obligation to even talk to them or explain how the company could make right, quote unquote, whatever it is that the.
Well, what should Brad Martin do then? I mean, this is the same as highway bandits robbing a stagecoach at this point.
Well, I talked to our federal affairs guys, and I said, look, there's a couple things that I'd like to see us try to do. Let's get the heads of the Second Amendment caucuses in the Congress, in the House and the Senate, to write some letters asking for an explanation. Probably get stonewalled. Okay. Then let's start looking for ways to put some zeros in the customs budget, because the custom actually was the doofus that got this thing started, and the ATF seems to be running cover for them happily. So we can go in there and just zero out their enforcement offices in those particular cities. And then those guys are out of a job. I don't think they'll be volunteering to go to work.
Well, I mean, what's going on where the ATF comes into Austin, it's now been confirmed, and just ordered the Austin police chief shut down this legal gun show, and they did it by going to the landlord, to the owner, and just saying, we're going to charge you or use nuisance abatement crack house laws on you. That would have been a frivolous lawsuit, but I can just see how the corporate attorney is thinking. My job is to save my
employer, my client, hassle and money. And it's going to be a lot cheaper for him to lose this contract than it is to pay me to fight these jerks
But
off.
isn't that the essence of racketeering and government color of law tyranny? Hitler didn't have a law to lock up Jewish businesses. He just did it.
Well, you and I see that very clearly. And again, it's the lawlessness that we've come to expect from an administration that itself is lawless. Their answer, I can just hear the president now. If we were in that Blair House on another meeting talking about things like this, the most likely answer I would expect is a stony, I won. In other words, I can do anything I want because I won. There are no laws that govern me.